Hey guys, it's DC here and welcome to the Basics of Cybersecurity, Level 1, Part 3, Real World Situations for Cybersecurity Professionals. In this part, we're going to go over two different case studies, which are from actual real world life situations. The idea here is to explore the fundamental concepts of risks in managing communication networks and how to, actually manage those risks. We're also going to go over understanding the difference between risks, vulnerabilities, and threats, how to prevent attacks on systems, and then at the end, there's a little bit of homework for you to do to proceed through to the next episode. So this is a massive episode, so please do stick with me through the whole thing. And for anyone who's new here, please do watch the first couple of episodes first before getting into this one, just so that you're on the same sort of page and level of understanding as everyone else who's going through this. If you have any questions, please jump on my Discord server. There is a whole section dedicated just to this course for asking questions, submitting your homework, and talking with me and other people who are also doing this free course. So jump on in there and have a chat to them. I'm sure everyone in there is pretty chill and happy to help out. All right, let's begin. This is a huge episode, like I said, so straight into it. In a modern world where high-profile breaches occur on a regular basis, more stress is placed on companies and security professionals to prevent their intellectual property and customer data from being plastered across the web or sold to the highest dark net bidder. Emerging technologies such as the Internet of Things and cloud further complicate the task of protecting valuable assets. Security professionals are challenged every single day with the daunting task of keeping their networks secured. With the exponential rise in connected devices and sophisticated cyber attacks, a security professional's ability to protect various systems becomes stunted due to the insufficient resources required for this extremely overwhelming task. Even the most passionate and dedicated security professionals experience difficulty in implementing the 20 critical security controls, or CSCs, due to the inundating threats that arise with each passing day. When correctly applied, these 20 CSCs undoubtedly provide a great benefit to a company's ability to detect and defend against many of the common attacks that systems experience today. While steps to implement the CSCs are clear and highly practical, deciding which CSCs to prioritize and work with first becomes a serious challenge. The real-world case study explored in this text will serve as a framework to assist security professionals in determining various methods to prioritize which CSCs to implement that will yield the most mitigation potential for the least amount of precious resources expended. Along the path of prioritization and attempted risk reduction through applying the CSCs, many professionals encounter a series of obstacles that delay or prevent the successful application of security controls entirely. Further utilizing this case study and other real-world examples, security professionals may gain new methods of strategic processes for overcoming seemingly insurmountable and stressful managerial interference. Alright, now before you fall asleep from that very long introduction, I'll give you a too long didn't watch or listen version. So basically, there are too many risks and vulnerabilities and threats that come through all in just like an hour's period. There's just too much for like a single staff or a team of staff to completely cover them all, which is why some things do slip through the cracks and why data breaches happen. In years to come, AI will help to, sort of automate some of these tasks and make things a little bit faster and easier, but we're not sort of up to that level yet. So there's still a lot of that sort of blue team monitoring work that needs to be done in organizations. So I'm not going to read through the entire case study because we'll probably be here for a week just listening to me ramble on about this case study. So what I'm going to do is put a link in the description. You can click on that and read through and just skim through the main points of the case study to see how this sort of relates in a real world situation. Cybercrime comes in many forms and costs the global economy an estimated $450 billion back in 2016. Though the tallies have yet to come in for 2020, they will definitely end with even bigger figures, more money lost, more time stolen, and more data breached than any year in digital history. Which has us asking, what are the worst cybersecurity disasters, and more importantly, what do they have in common, assuming that common threads can provide additional insight on disaster preparedness. Now again, I'm not going to read through each of these 10 data breaches through history, but they are very interesting, so have a look in the description below to check out those data breaches and read all about them. It might give you some insight into maybe how to potentially protect your own environment better. Okay, now we're on to the big part of this lesson. Communication Network Management Fundamentals. Now I'm going to go over different threats, risks, and vulnerabilities, and basically what the difference is between them all. So let's begin. Terms such as cyber threats, vulnerabilities, and risks are often used interchangeably and are confused. This post aims to define each term, highlighted how they differ, and show how they are related to one another. Cyber threats, or simply threats, refer to cybersecurity circumstances or events with the potential to cause harm by the way of their outcome. A few examples of common threats include a social engineering or phishing attack that leads to an attacker installing a Trojan or something similar and stealing private information from your applications, political activists DDoSing your website, an administrator accidentally leaving data unprotected on a production system, causing a data breach, or a storm flooding your ISP's data center. Cybersecurity threats are actualized by threat actors. Threat actors usually refer to persons or entities who may potentially initiate a threat. While natural disasters, as well as other environmental and political events, do constitute threats, they are not generally regarded as being threat actors. This does not mean that such threats should be disregarded or given less importance. Examples of common threat actors include financially motivated criminals or cybercriminals, politically motivated activists or hacktivists, competitors, careless employees, disgruntled employees, and nation-state attackers. Cyber threats can also become more dangerous if threat actors leverage one or more vulnerabilities to gain access to a system, often including the operating system. Vulnerabilities simply refer to weaknesses in a system. They make threat outcomes possible and potentially even more dangerous. A system could be exploited through a single vulnerability. For example, a single SQL injection attack could give an attacker full control over sensitive data. An attacker could also chain several exploits together, taking advantage of more than one vulnerability to gain more control. Examples of common vulnerabilities are SQL injections, cross-site scripting, server misconfigurations, sensitive data transmitted in plain text, and more. Risks are usually confused with threats. However, there is a subtle difference between the two. A cybersecurity risk refers to a combination of threat probability and loss/impact, usually in the monetary terms, but quantifying a breach is extremely difficult. Essentially, this translates to the following. A risk equals a threat possibility times the potential loss. So therefore, a risk is a scenario that should be avoided combined with the likely losses to result from that scenario. The following is a hypothetical example of how risks can be constructed. SQL injection is a vulnerability. Sensitive data theft is one of the biggest threats that SQL injection enables. Financially motivated attackers are one of the threat actors. The impact of sensitive data getting stolen will bear a significant financial cost or financial and reputation loss to the business, and the probability of such an attack is high given that SQL injection is an easy access, widely exploited vulnerability and the site is externally facing. Therefore, the SQL injection vulnerability in this scenario should be treated as a high-risk vulnerability. The difference between a vulnerability and a cyber threat and the difference between a vulnerability and a risk are usually easily understood. However, the difference between a threat and a risk may be more nuanced. Understanding this difference in terminology allows for clearer communication between security teams and other parties and a better understanding of how threats influence risk. This, in turn, may help prevent and mitigate security breaches. A good understanding is also needed for effective risk assessment and risk management, for designing efficient security solutions based on threat intelligence, as well as for building an effective security policy and a cybersecurity strategy. Well done, we got through that massive amount of words. Congratulations, take a break, eat a sandwich, have a coffee. Let's get started on the next section. So some of these things in the list may sound very obvious to you, but I thought I'd mention them anyway and sort of go over them one by one with you in a little bit of detail. There are a total of 11 items on this list, so let's begin with number 1, which is backing up your data. Back up your business data and website, please. This can help you recover any information you lose if you experience a cyber incident or you have computer issues. It's essential that you back up your information, data, and information regularly, obviously. Fortunately, backing up doesn't generally cost much, and it is also very easy to do. It's a good idea to use multiple backup methods to ensure the safety of your important files, and a good backup system typically includes daily incremental backups to a portable device or cloud storage, end-of-week server backups, quarterly server backups, yearly server backups. Now, the other important thing with backups is to actually check that you can restore your backups. So to do a test restore every now and then, some people do it on a daily checklist, some people do it once a week, some people do it every other day of the week. It's up to you and how anal you want to be about that data and how easy it's going to be to restore it just in case there is a problem. There's a backup solution for literally everything out there. So if you have a virtual machine, you can use Veeam or just take snapshots and put them on an external disk or cloud device. There's NAS drives, your standard USB backup device like an external hard drive. You can do so many different things to back up your data. Just make sure it's actually happening. Make sure the backups work and that you can actually restore them. It'll save you an absolute truckload of pain down the line if you don't have these checks in place. And you would be surprised how many places I've seen where their backups aren't tested, they're not regular enough. It's just a freaking disaster. So please do your backups. It's number 1 on the list for a reason. Number 2 on the list is to secure your devices and network. Now, you can secure your devices by keeping them up to date. If you're working in an enterprise environment and you have something like a WSUS server or some sort of control over your updates, it's pretty ideal to do it that way. That's not all though. If you want to protect your network, you can also do a thing called port protection. So use a protocol called 802.1x or radius, and you can put port protection on each and every single port in the business. So just in case if someone like myself, for example, was doing a security audit and I'm in the lobby of your hotel or whatever, I'm auditing a hotel, and I plug a device straight into your network, I don't want to be able to get anything at all. No access. 0. Because if I do, then I'm going to penetrate it. That's the whole point of it, right? The same goes for your Wi-Fi. Please separate your corporate Wi-Fi and public Wi-Fi. Make sure the networks are separated. Make sure you can never talk across the two. It's pretty common for people to do things like war driving, which I've also done before, professionally of course, not illegally, where I've gone around to different businesses and connected to their Wi-Fi from out on the street. And that's just their free open public Wi-Fi, right? Anyone could do this. You then jump on, you do a couple of scans, you have a look around, you realize that they have business critical systems on their public Wi-Fi. It's ridiculous. It should never happen in this day and age, but it does, unfortunately. It's one of the things I always check for when looking at an environment, as well as obviously testing the security of properly set up networks. But yeah, just secure your Wi-Fi, please. Number 3 on the list is to encrypt important information. I'll read the description here from the Australian government website. It says, make sure you turn on your network encryption and encrypt data when sent or stored online. Encryption converts your data into a secret code before you send it over the internet. This reduces the risk of theft, destruction, or tampering. Now, the key word here is reduces the risk. It doesn't mean it eliminates it. Encryption cannot eliminate someone getting into your important files, but it can help you to prevent that from happening. Encryption is pretty important, and something that I would add in here that's going to segue to the next point is to use a password manager, which takes me on to number 4, which is to ensure you have two-factor authentication on as many things as possible. Two-factor authentication, put simply, is where you type in your username and password into a system, and then it asks you for another password that's sent to your mobile device via SMS or on an app like Authy. What that does is, even if someone is able to decrypt your password and find out what your username is, they would then have to have your other authentication device, which is either your phone or like an RSA token, to be able to get into that system. It's not easily gotten around. You kind of have to social engineer that person to get that information or interfere with their device to potentially read that information, like put a keylogger on there first. But it's so much more secure. It adds a lot of security to a very simple security program. You can do this with different password managers as well. And if you are using a password manager, please enable two-factor authentication on it, because the last thing you want is someone to crack your password manager and then be able to see all of your passwords to everything you have. I think that's a pretty high risk item. Number 5 is to manage passwords, which I've already talked about a little bit, but using a password manager is very important. So for example, I use 1Password for my password management. It has a secret key, a master key, and a username that's associated with it. Once you type in all 3 of those, it then asks you for a two-factor authentication code, because I definitely do not want anyone getting into my password system. Number 6 on the list is to monitor the use of computers and devices on your network. Now, it says here to keep a record of all the computer equipment and software that your business uses and make sure they are secure to prevent forbidden access. Now, you can do this with things like the SolarWinds package or Manage Engine or any of those asset management softwares that essentially lets you see exactly what's installed on the computer, when it was installed, who installed it, what updates are pending, all these sort of things. You can do it with other things like RMM tools like LabTech or Datto's RMM tool, or there's 100 of them out there. If you're working in an organization, chances are something like this is already implemented. Just make sure it's managed and documented as well. Number 7 is to put policies in place for your staff. A cybersecurity policy helps your staff to understand their responsibilities and what is acceptable when they use or share data, computer and devices, emails, and internet sites. It's also important to have a strong social media policy. This can set out what type of business information your staff can share online and where. An attacker could tailor a convincing scam around your employee by using the business and personal information they post online. Make sure your employees are aware of the policies and review them regularly, and consider refresher training to make sure all employees are aware of the policies in your business. A perfect example is a job I had a few years ago, which I'm not even really allowed to talk about, which I had to list on my resume and my LinkedIn profile as a completely different job. Now, they obviously didn't want me talking about that job or what I did there, particularly the systems I work with. And at the time, they didn't even want any association with me and that particular business/organization. Now, the reason for that is because the data that I was dealing with there was quite secretive. So yeah, basically they just didn't want anyone knowing that I worked there, which is fair enough. So for example, you wouldn't put on your LinkedIn or Facebook that you work for super secret business name, whatever it's called here. They don't want that in there, because if someone searches that and then finds you, and then they might potentially try to social engineer or do some recon on you and just OSINT the hell out of you and try and build a profile up around you to either blackmail you or impersonate you, which does happen quite a lot. Number 8 on the list is to train your staff to be safe online. Your staff are your business's most important and last line of defense. It's important to make sure that your staff know about the threats they can face online and the major role they play in keeping your business safe. Educate them about things like their computer rights and responsibilities, their network access and use, acceptable online practices when using email, work computers and devices, maintaining good passwords, fraudulent emails, and reporting suspicious online activity. Number 9 on the list is to protect your customers. Of course, you don't want to be hacked. You don't want a data leak. And if you do, in Australia and the US and the UK and a couple of other countries, I think Canada as well actually, you have to report data leaks. It's a government policy that's been set in place to basically help consumers or clients of companies. So if there was a data breach, they have to report it. They have to do it. It is vital that you keep your customers' information safe. If you lose their information, it will damage your business reputation and you could face legal consequences. Make sure your business invests and provides a secure online environment for transactions. Secures any personal information that it stores, and find out what your payment gateway provider can do to prevent online payment fraud. There are different privacy laws around what you can do with customer data as well. Have a look at the GDPR. That's a pretty good reference. Australia has its own Australian guide for privacy principles, and I'm pretty sure the US, UK, Canada, pretty much everywhere would have their own guidelines as well. Number 10 on the list is to protect yourself. Consider cyber insurance to protect your business. The cost of dealing with a cyber attack can be much, much more than just repairing databases, strengthening security, or replacing laptops. Cyber liability insurance cover can help your business with the cost of recovering from an attack. Like all insurance policies, it is very important your business understands what it is covered for. Now, I was actually talking with an insurance broker the other day who said recently, with all this COVID stuff going around at the moment, people have actually been investing in cybersecurity practices and cyber prevention insurance policies, which is absolutely amazing. It's finally happening. People are actually looking at security as a serious thing. Number 11 on the list, which is the last one, and it is to keep yourself updated on the risks. Now, I've been doing this for a little while, but I recently made it a little bit easier for myself by creating a news feed in my Discord server. So every morning when I wake up, I have a quick flick through there, have a look at the top stories about what the latest cybersecurity risks, breaches, and hacks are. And I just have a quick look at the titles and I click on the ones that interest me or might potentially impact me. I do it in my lunch break sometimes as well, and sometimes at night as well, depending on if there's been much in there. It's just a quick flick through. There's not usually that many articles. It reads from about 15 different websites and it just sort of collects it all in one. I also used to look at CVEs like constantly, but they come in so hot and fast these days that I just can't keep up with it, to be honest. So I do have that in my Discord server as well, but it's more just there as a reference point. Anyway, we have reached the end of this video. We have one little bit of homework for you, which is to read through those 2 case studies that I posted in the description that I gave an introduction to before. What I want you to do there is to take those 2 case studies that I posted in the description and to write a proposal based on those articles saying some preventative methods that a business could take to prevent themselves from that one particular attack. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking all the way to the end of this video with me. I know it's been a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Catch you later.